Hi, I'm Dan Hegstead. Welcome to my vlog and podcast, Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving. Before we get into the topic today, somebody asked, what the heck is a vlog? That's vlog that I'm saying, V-L-O-G. Well, on a website, you might have an essay or something you write, and that would be a blog, a web log. Kind of a diary, maybe think of that. If you add video to it, it's a video blog or vlog. So that's what this is. That's what a vlog is. And I take the audio from the vlog and make it a podcast. So the audio is exactly the same. I add the video because some people like to watch video, and you can do that. But if you're driving or riding a bike or walking and want to listen, you have the podcast version. That it's the same thing either way. And so you can listen anywhere. And then you folks who are watching can criticize, my hair or my shirt or the background or whatever. Yeah, hey, we got a new background today. I decided I'd hang up something a little different. We're still in my home recording studio, but a little different background today. So I'm a big advocate of drinking a lot of water. I just drink coffee and water is about all I drink. And I do a lot of biking, and I once ran out of water 10 miles from my car, and it was a hot day, and it was miserable. Beyond miserable, I was getting worried. And I vowed never to run out of water again, so I carry a lot of water with me. I drink a lot of water, and I like my water cold. So I don't have one of those refrigerators that makes ice cubes, so I have to do it in the old plastic trays and, twist them to dump the cubes out, and half of them break, and they fall on the floor and all that. I'll tell you, making ice is kind of a pain in the butt. I have a new car, which I really like. It has a heated steering wheel. But, the top of the steering wheel isn't heated, only the sides and bottom, and you can't adjust the heat. It's just either on or off. Yeah. Well, those are a prime example of what we call a first world problem. Years ago, I was complaining about something stupid, and my son, who is now 30, said, "That's a first world problem, Dad." Well, what is that? Well, it's changed over the years, but here's where it comes from. Back in the day, the first world was the U.S., Western Europe, and their, allies and aligned nations. That was the first world. The second world was, back in the day, the Soviet Union, the communist bloc, China, and their allies. That was the second world. The third world was non-aligned nations. And that's changed over time. Nowadays, a third world means probably what you'd consider impoverished countries, low living standards, poor health care, little infrastructure, very low incomes. Those are called first world problems. But they are real people that live there, and they are, other than the stuff they have or don't have, they're people just like us. So whining about having to make ice cubes or my heated steering wheel not having a variable temperature, that's a first world problem. Those are prime examples of first world problems, and that's what I want to talk about today. You need to keep a perspective. You need to understand just how good we have it here in the West, and particularly in the United States. You just need to remember that. Great story by a man named Brian Curcio, Reverend Brian Curcio. He's a singer, songwriter, musician, and a minister with the United Church of Christ. And I'm very proud that my wife and I attend the First Congregational United Church of Christ. The Congregationalists were behind Amistad. They were the first people to ordain a black person 200 years ago, the first woman to be ordained, the first gay person to be ordained. Those are the Congregationalists. Very proud to be a Congregationalist. Well, anyway, Brian Curcio is a member, and he was helping out with Mother Teresa's group in Haiti, the Sisters of Mercy, and he was asked to give a haircut. And as I recall, he said, "I didn't know anything about giving haircuts, but it was what needed doing, so I did it." And so he's cutting this guy's hair, and he asks the man, Here he is from the United States. I believe he's from Madison, Wisconsin. And this man from Haiti, and he's getting his hair cut by this guy. And Brian asked him, "Do you think I'm rich? Do you think I'm rich?" And, Brian, being a minister, certainly is not rich by our standards. But the man's answer was everything. He said, Brian says he thought about it for a minute, and then he asked Brian, "How many times a week do you eat?" How many times a week do you eat? Because in third world countries, or Haiti in this case, you would get what we consider a meal just a few times a week. Think of that. Now, are you rich? I tell that story as often as I can, and especially at Thanksgiving, because it is definitely the story of Thanksgiving. How many days a week do you eat? What? I don't even stop eating. So, it's hard to count. That's the way we live here. But we need to remember that. This man getting the haircut, asking the question, was no different than you and I. But his perspective is different. We need to appreciate our good fortune. Think of our houses. We don't notice how fabulous our houses are because we don't see the alternative. We need to get out and travel in the world and see what people live in and realize that once you come back, you drive down almost any street in America and it's mansion after mansion, not by American standards, but by world standards. And you are allowed to compare yourself to world standards. I think it's important to keep that perspective. Listen to this. A working person in the world today, and I updated this information just a couple years ago when I was writing Next Steps. The average person working, adult in the world, makes $1,480 a year. $1,480 a year. In the United States, average salary is $48,672. Think of that. $48,672 as opposed to $1,400. Now, clearly, living standards are different, and I get all that. But I don't care where you are in the world, $1,400 a year doesn't go very far. And that's the average. I'm an advocate of going camping every once in a while. I was so glad, it must have been 30 years ago. I was camping in the Boundary Waters. It was cold up there. It was May. And if you haven't been camping in the Boundary Waters canoe area of Minnesota, you really need to do it. Go up to Ely or up the Gunflint Trail. Find an outfitter. They'll rent you everything you need. They'll get you a map and they'll send you on your way. And it's a terrific experience. It really is. You should do that. So we were out there, and it was cold, and we made coffee. We filtered it and did they took out the bacteria and such, and then you got to wait for it to get heated up, and then so I was there with this cup of coffee, and it was really windy, and I noticed I'm drinking my coffee, and there's floaties in it. The things fell from the trees, and I don't know if there was a pine needle that fell in there or what, but you wouldn't pay money for that in a restaurant, but it was one of the best cups of coffee I ever had. You need to go camping every once in a while to lower your standards to find out what's really important. And I'm serious about that. You need to get uncomfortable to realize how comfortable you've got it. I read comics. I love comics. I read about 30 comics a day. Love the comics. One of my favorites is Arlo and Janice by Jimmy Johnson. And it's just very minimalist, just a couple characters, Arlo and his wife Janice and their cat Ludwig, and they've got their son Gene and his wife, and just a couple other characters we hardly ever see. But and sometimes it's pretty subtle too. But Arlo and Janice, one of my favorite quotes is, Arlo and Janice are in one panel. They're toasting themselves, and they say the secret to the pursuit of happiness is to recognize when you've caught it. The secret to the pursuit of happiness is recognizing when you've caught it. And it can be a little fleeting for us sometimes. We can have bad days, but overall, man, we're living a pretty good life here, aren't we? Yeah. There's a group in my town here that advocates coming up with 3 things a day that you're grateful for. They even made some, pads of paper to write them down. And my wife and I try and do that every night at supper. And we try to eat at a table. And my wife shops and buys real food and cooks food. And it's nice. And we sit at the table with the TV off and we talk. And we will come up with our 3 things. Now, some days it's hard to come up with 3 things you're grateful for. Some days you could do 6 or more. But you need to think about it every day. What are you grateful for? In my book, Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving, I don't say I advocate. I insist that you make a gratitude list. And I don't mean just sit back and think, gee, I've got it good. No, I mean get paper. You get paper and you get a pen and you write down all the things you're grateful for. Because, again, there is something just magical about it coming from your brain, through your hand, through the pen, on the paper. It becomes real. And if you're serious about moving from coping to thriving, you'll do this. If you're not serious about it, you'll say, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do it someday. You really need to make a gratitude list and update it and keep on that. It's important that you do so. Now, my purpose is not to make you feel guilty. That's not it at all. I don't want you to feel guilty. I want you just to appreciate all the good things we have. We have so much, we take it for granted. And, you're stuck in traffic. The stoplights are working against you. Man, you got a car. You're going places. That's a big deal. My wife and I went to Hawaii last winter, and it's a long flight. And it's 12 hours of travel and airports and all that. And it's a long flight. And it's not pleasant. And then you got to come back. And there's just no 2 ways about it. But I can get from the middle of America to Hawaii in 12 hours. Just think of that. Yeah, it's long and it's not pleasant, but I can be in Hawaii in 12 hours. That's a big deal. I'm really grateful for that. And I need to remember that when I'm between Seattle and Kona, and you're stuck in that little seat, and you know what it's like. I can be in Hawaii in 12 hours. Yeah, thinking I want to cut my thing short tonight. I want to go to Hawaii. So I don't want to make you feel guilty. I just want you to appreciate the good things you've got and quit complaining. I hear people complaining, and I want to just say that's a first world problem. Just shut up. Really, you got food. Maybe it's not the right kind of cheese, but you got food. That's a big deal. I had to wait 3 days for delivery. Oh, really? Okay, the internet is too slow. The battery on my phone dies right after lunch. I can never find the remote. Oh, no. Oh, I didn't buy tomatoes. They just didn't look good. Quit complaining. Quit whining. I get so tired of that. All right, just remember how good you've got it. Enjoy those things. Every day, 3 things. What are you grateful for? And make a gratitude list. Put it ink on paper. It's important you do that. All right. Look for those first world problems and be glad you've got them. There you go. That's a nice piece of gratitude for you. All right. If you're looking for a speaker for your next meeting or conference or convention, please consider me. That's what I do. I'm Dan Hegstead. I'm the author of Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving. My website is danhegstead.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.